Hello there, greetings. You may know me as Crispy or Draco or Dr. Draco, but let's skip with the formalities. Let's get on with today's video, which is a book review of 3 books. Well, 3 books that I've managed to get from the library. I like them so much that I thought I would just basically give you a rundown of what they are. And of course, if we're going to do that, then I wish I knew where I actually put them. Where'd I put them? Oh, for goodness sake. There it is. Sorry. Wasting time here. If we're going to be doing some literary stuff, then I suppose I'd better put on my literary glasses. Ooh, European. So, let's make a start with a kiddies book. A very kiddies book. If you know your space history, you'll know that the second satellite, let's not get picky here, let's just say the second satellite that reached space was called Sputnik 2. Sputnik 2 was also the first to contain live cargo in Laika, the dog. The little mongrel type doggy called Laika. And so Owen Davey has decided to immortalise this with a book called Laika the Astronaut. And it's for ages 4 to 7. Yes, I know, but I saw Laika and I thought, oh, they wrote a book for Laika. And now the interesting thing about this book is that, let's see what they've done. That Owen Davey has managed to make this book look very Soviet in its design. So as you can see, Laika was all alone, and you can see little Laika down there, and we just lots of red and grey and Acre colouring, and it carries on this style as well. So as we go on through, Laika was alone, then gets found out, and then gets picked up by a scientist, and then trained to get put into space, and then blast off. Very nice. They don't actually tell you the real ending of Laika's fate, which is she died of heat exhaustion about a few hours after takeoff, and was burned up on re-entry. We don't mention that, and of course you can't tell little 7-year-old kiddies about it. But I won't tell you how Owen Davey decided to end the story. It was a lot more bit tear-jerking in its way, I will admit. But it's a very good book. Of course, I am 23 years its senior, but its target audience. 23 years over its target audience, but it's a very nice picture book, and it has some very nice pictures. So if you're a parent, if you're my age and you want to get a little kiddies book for your little young scientist, that's a very good one. The second one is one that I'm currently reading, which is called What If by Randall Munroe. The same guy who does this stick figure XKCD, what do you call it, webcomics, sorry. I'm not very au fait with doing all these things very quickly, so you have to be a bit patient with me. Anyway, serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. Hypothetical questions like, if I chucked a baseball at was it 90% the speed of light, what will happen? The answer is very bad things will happen, but according to the Major League Baseball rules, it's you're allowed to walk to first base, apart from the fact that you just destroyed your own country in a nuclear explosion. But there is one section I would like to read, just as an example of how the book goes, as its method of communication, and it's called Everybody Jump. What would happen if everyone on Earth stood as close to each other as they could and jumped, everyone landing on the ground in the same instant? Now, as you can imagine, everybody, the age-old question, if everybody jumped at the same time, what would happen? This is one of the most popular questions submitted through my web page. Sorry, I'm already doing better. It has been examined before, including by science blogs and The Straight Dope. They cover the kinematics pretty well. However, they don't tell the whole story. Let's take a closer look. At the start of the scenario, the entire Earth's population has been magically transported together into one place. This crowd takes up an area the size of Rhode Island, the state in the US. But there's no reason to use the vague phrase, an area the size of Rhode Island. This is our scenario. We can be specific. They're actually in Rhode Island. At the stroke of noon, everybody jumps. As discussed elsewhere, it doesn't really affect the planet. Earth outweighs us by a factor of over 10 trillion. On average, we humans can vertically jump maybe half a metre on a good day. Even if the Earth were rigid and responded instantly, it would be pushed down by less than an atom's width. Next, everyone falls back to the ground. Fine. Technically, this delivers a lot of energy into the Earth, but it's spread out over a large enough area that it doesn't do much more than leave footprints in a lot of gardens. A slight pulse of pressure spreads through the North American continental crust and dissipates with little effect. The sound of all those feet hitting the ground creates a loud, drawn-out roar lasting many seconds. Eventually the air grows quiet. Seconds pass. Everyone looks around. There are a lot of uncomfortable glances. Someone coughs. A cell phone comes out of a pocket. Within seconds, the rest of the world's 5 billion phones follow. All of them, even those compatible with the region's towers, are displaying some version of no signal. The cell networks have all collapsed under the unprecedented load. Outside Rhode Island, abandoned machinery begins grinding to a halt. The T.F. Green Airport in Warwick, Rhode Island handles a few thousand passengers a day. Assuming they got things organised, including sending out scouting missions to retrieve fuel, they could run at 500% capacity for years without making a dent in the crowd. The addition of all the nearby airports doesn't change the equation much, nor does the region's light rail system. Crowds climb on board container ships in the deep water port of Providence, but stocking sufficient food and water for a long sea voyage proves a challenge. Rhode Island's 500,000 cars are commandeered. Moments later, I-95, I-195 and I-295 become the sites of the largest traffic jam in the history of the planet. Most of the cars are engulfed by the crowds, but a lucky few get out and begin wandering the abandoned road network. Some make it past New York or Boston before running out of fuel. Since the electricity is probably not on at this point, rather than find a working gas pump, it's easier to just abandon the car and steal a new one. Who can stop you? All the cops are in Rhode Island. The edge of the crowd spreads outward into southern Massachusetts and Connecticut. Any two people who meet are unlikely to have a language in common, and almost nobody knows the area. The state becomes a chaotic patchwork of coalescing and collapsing social hierarchies. Violence is common, everybody is hungry and thirsty. Grocery stores are emptied, fresh water is hard to come by, and there is no efficient system for distributing it. Within weeks, Rhode Island is a graveyard of billions. The survivors spread out across the face of the world and struggle to build a new civilization atop the pristine ruins of the old. Our species staggers on, but our population has been greatly reduced. Earth's orbit is completely unaffected. It spins along exactly as it did before our species-wide jump. But at least, now we know. So definitely the hint of sarcasm. It goes over many other things, like how high do I have to drop a steak before it's cooked? What happens if all the DNA body would just disappear? What would happen? Let's see, what other things have we got? What would happen if we drained all of the oceans in the world? What would happen? And assuming that we put all that water into Mars, what happens to Mars? And the answer is, if you're Dutch, you're going to take over the entire world, apparently. And then you're going to take over Mars. Read the book if you want to find out why the Netherlands, specifically. If I was printing out the whole of Wikipedia, how many printers would I need to cope with all the edits and resubmissions? Did the sun ever set on the British Empire? Simple answer is no, it hasn't. Again, read the book if you want to find out why. It's available in your local library, or it should be. And if they don't, well, cause a riot. I don't know, I don't care. Your final book is actually an unofficial sequel, but authorised, but unofficial sequel to the Winnie the Pooh saga. Yeah. So, right, what we're going to do is that we're going to have a nice little fluffy thing. There we go. A little fluffy fox on my lap. There we go. Because, we are now little kiddies again. But this is actually, to be honest, more of an adult book. Of course, it's got language that's all whimsical and wonderful. And of course, this isn't written by A.A. Milne. He's long since dead, as is the illustrator E.H. Shepard. But David Benedictus has done his best to emulate A.A. Milne, as has Mark Burgess tried to emulate E.H. Shepard. Now, fun interesting fact, about, 20 miles from where I currently am, is a massive archive of E.H. Shepard's stuff. But nobody's allowed to see it because the University of Surrey are tight bastards in that respect. Oh well. Anyway. But it's got a little whimsical language, it's fantastic, it's wonderful in its way, and it tries to go over a few sort of more modern things, I guess. Let's try and get to the... Oh, come on, where are we? We've got scenarios where Owl does a crossword and a spelling bee is held. Very American. Rabbit tries to organise a census of the 100-acre wood. Pooh, yet again, goes in search of honey. Owl tries to become an author and fails in spectacular fashion. We have a new character, a bit pretentious in her ways, but this new character is called Lottie. She's an otter, so Lottie the Ottie. Tish. We get introduced to the game of cricket, and it's quite interesting how it actually narrates the cricket match itself. I suppose it's also a good way of introducing cricket to the Americans because they think it's so complicated. Well, if you think that's complicated, try explaining the holding rule in the NFL. And then we've got a harvest festival held in the forest, and Christopher Robin springs a surprise. It's the last chapter, so there is a bit of a tense thing, trying to think what's going to happen. But it starts off with Winnie the Pooh and Piglet having a little whimsical time, and then suddenly a rumour's heard. Christopher Robin's coming back. He disappeared for so long, but now he's coming back. And he does come back. And so they realise, oh great, it's some new adventures. But the reason why I say that this is adult is because there's some passively depressing, I know it's a strange thing to say, passively depressing passages in this. But also gives you that slight glimmer of hope that only an adult would sort of understand. Chapter 7. Did you miss us when you were away at school? Pooh asked Christopher Robin one August morning when the 100-acre wood was at its best. I did, said Christopher Robin, but then something would happen and I would forget. It's noisy at school. Everyone shouts. It's very noisy in the forest too, said Pooh. Yes, but here the noises come one at a time, and at school they all come together. Pooh seemed to be a little disappointed with Christopher Robin's answer. If you don't miss us, nobody will. Silly old bear, said Christopher Robin. I might not have missed you all the time, but I never forgot you. You know, something like that, sort of discussing the ideas of loneliness. And nothing epitomises this sort of sense of depression, passive depression, than in the last few pages of this book, which I'm very sorry, but under fair use and criticism, of which, you know, if you want me to give it a score, 4 out of 5. I don't know, one fluffy fox out of a foxhole. I don't know. Let me illustrate why this book is quite nice, but also an ending to the whole Winnie the Pooh saga, as if there's no more. It's Toy Story free. Let's leave Andy. Let's move on. Well then, Pooh, said Christopher Robin, leaning his bicycle back against the tree. So... He stopped to give Pooh a hug. It was a bit awkward because Christopher Robin was quite tall these days, but Pooh hugged him back as best he could. Over Pooh's head, Christopher Robin finished. I'll be away for a while again, but I know you'll look after the forest. I'll try, said Pooh. Really, he wasn't sure what looking after the forest might involve, but if Christopher Robin thought he could do it, that meant that he could. Christopher Robin let go and gave Pooh a nod. He got on his bicycle and pedalled swiftly away, turning just once to give a last wave and a smile before he was lost among the trees. Later, after Owl and Rabbit had had an argument over who would look after the gramophone and the records, and Lottie and Eeyore had solved the argument by carrying off the whole lot between them, Pooh and Piglet walked home through the moonlit wood. I wonder why things have to change, murmured Piglet. Pooh thought for a while, then said, It gives them a chance to get better, like when the bees went away and came back. I suppose so, said Piglet a bit hesitantly. Then he cheered up. It's been a good summer, really. Do you remember that 6 I hit to win the cricket match? I do, said Pooh, a bit less cheerfully than Piglet, as he also remembered being hit on the nose by the cricket ball. And he remembered Piglet going down the well, and the census, and the academy, and the produce, and the gramophone. It all seemed mixed up with the fluff in his head, but at the same time it was so special that it deserved a hum. So he sat down on a log and made one up, which I'm going to cut off for this moment. I've singed it, but I haven't singed it, said Pooh, because I can't write. I've singed it, but I haven't signed it, said Pooh, because I can't write. Doesn't matter, said Piglet. I was worried you weren't going to put me in like you always used to, but then at the end you did. You don't rhyme with very much, said Pooh. And are there many rhymes for Christopher Robin? Wondered Piglet. I don't think so. Not good ones. We could go and ask him tomorrow. Then they remembered that Christopher Robin wouldn't be there tomorrow, or the next day. So off they went together. And if you pass by the 100-acre wood on an early autumn evening, you might see them, arm in arm, strolling contentedly under the trees, until they are swallowed up by the mist. Now, if you're a kid, you would probably just sort of let that pass right by you. But if as you're older, you then start to understand the whole minutiae of it, and then you've watched films and movies of that kind of thing. And what goes through my head at that point is that as you see them walk into the background, everything around them just starts to disintegrate. How best to put it? So you've got your typical animated Winnie the Pooh thing, but then suddenly the edges start sort of coming in. They're all blank, and then colour starts to fade, and then it goes from a colour drawing to much rougher, like pencil-like drawing, and then the lines start getting shaky, and then that colour just disappears, and then the whole thing transforms into this ever not shrinking, but the background is coming in. I've forgotten what it's called now. Oh, where you get a ring around the camera. Vignette. So you get an ever increasing vignette, and then you get an ink drawing, which then turns into a pencil drawing, and then by that point you've just got Winnie the Pooh and Piglet right in the middle. Again, sort of shaky lines, and then that disintegrates into those preliminary shapes that you put, those preliminary shapes that you use to create a proper drawing in the first place. I suppose the best example is you have to be British for this. If you ever saw the Tony Robinson programme Stay Tuned, then a bit like that. A bit like how you, at the end of a programme, they would just do the title sequence backwards. So then you had the little massive cartoony thing, and then it just sort of disintegrates into Jerry from Tom and Jerry, just sort of peeking out of his mouse hole. And then it just sort of turns into this little oval with a cross on it, and then it disappears. A bit like that, but more depressing. So overall, 3 books to look out for: Laika the Astronaut by Owen Davey, What If by Randall Munroe, if you're a crazy scientist like me, hey, and Return to the 100 Acre Wood, definitely something to look at, because, well, even if you don't like Winnie the Pooh, it does give you a little taste of British whimsy. And with that, I'm not one for begging, but with that, like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. ManamiCon is coming soon, so expect some videos of that as well. Anything else? No? Well, I suppose little Foxy is saying goodbye, except his paw's on the wrong side there. Bye-bye. 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 He also says like and subscribe. Bye-bye. Oh, and comment as well if you want to.